Imagine, if you will, that the noise of the modern world has faded away. The hum of traffic, the glow of screens, the weight of today's worries, all slipping quietly into the distance. You close your eyes, and a softer sound rises in their place: faint footsteps on stone, the low murmur of Latin voices, the warm flicker of torchlight. You find yourself standing at the edge of a great Roman road, its surface made smooth by countless marching feet. The air is warm, touched with the scent of dust and distant fields of wild herbs. Somewhere nearby, the gentle clinking of armor mingles with the quiet breath of a horse. The night sky above is wide and eternal, the same sky seen by men who lived, marched, and dreamed nearly 2,000 years ago. You are here to walk beside one of them. A soldier of the Roman Empire. Not in the clash of war, but in the calm, unhurried rhythm of his days. We will wander through his life, his thoughts, his camp, and his journeys. And we will see what it was truly like to be a soldier in ancient Rome. Let the road before us lead you gently into another time. The morning of a soldier. The first light of dawn in the Roman camp is not sudden. It does not burst upon the world in a flash, but rather seeps gently into it, as though the sky itself is taking a deep, unhurried breath. The pale gold of morning touches the tops of the tent poles first, tracing them in a faint shimmer before gliding downward to the taut linen walls. Gradually, the canvas takes on a warm glow, like parchment held up to the sun. Inside one of these tents lies Marcus Lucius Varro, a soldier of the Roman Empire. He has been awake for several minutes, though his eyes remain closed. It is a habit he has formed over years on campaign to listen before he moves, to measure the world around him before he steps into it. The camp at dawn has a language of its own, and Marcus knows it well. He hears the faint crunch of footsteps outside, slow and deliberate, likely one of the early watchmen returning from his shift. Farther away, the low, rhythmic rasp of a whetstone whispers across steel. Someone, perhaps from the next Cantaburnium, the 8-man squad that shares a tent and fights together, is already tending to his gladius, making sure the blade will be as ready as the soldier himself when the time comes. Nearer still, a soft stirring, his tentmate turning over in sleep. The air is cool inside, carrying the scent of canvas, leather, and faint traces of wood smoke from last night's fire. Somewhere beyond the walls of the tent, the faint bubbling of a pot begins, the morning's pulse of the camp. The smell of boiling grain drifts in, promising the first, simple meal of the day. Marcus opens his eyes slowly, letting them adjust to the muted glow. The space around him is small but orderly, every item in its place, every strap of armor coiled neatly, every personal possession tucked into its allotted spot. He rises, stretching the stiffness from his back, and pulls on his tunic, a simple garment of coarse wool, worn but well kept. The fabric is rough against his skin, but familiar, another constant in the ever-changing life of a soldier. He ties his singula militaire, the broad leather belt that sits low on his waist, its metal fittings catching the dim light. This belt is not merely practical, it is a mark of his profession, the subtle rattle of its metal plates a sound every Roman soldier comes to know as his own. Marcus moves quietly so as not to wake the others, and with a practiced hand, he adjusts the drape of the fabric, smooths the folds, and steps outside. The morning greets him with a freshness that belongs only to the first hour of day. The air is cool but carries a hint of the warmth that will soon arrive with the sun. He breathes deeply, drawing in the mingled scents of the camp, dry earth, damp grass, the faint tang of iron from oiled weapons, and the comforting aroma of bread baking somewhere nearby. The camp itself lies in perfect order, as all Roman camps do. Rows of tents stand in straight, disciplined lines, their positions chosen with mathematical precision. To one side, the main road via Principals runs like a spine through the heart of the encampment, flanked by larger tents belonging to the centurions and officers. Farther still, the wooden palisade stands tall, a barrier against the unknown world beyond. Beyond that fence, the land stretches into the soft haze of early light rolling fields dotted with wild herbs, the silvery ribbon of a distant river, and low hills rising like the backs of sleeping animals. Marcus's boots press softly into the packed earth as he walks toward the cookhouse tent. Around him, the camp is stirring awake. Two soldiers emerge from their tent, stretching in unison before greeting each other with quiet nods. Another, younger recruit hurries past carrying a bucket of water, careful not to spill a drop. Somewhere nearby, a horse snorts and stamps the ground, its tethered rope taut. At the cookhouse, a small group of men are already gathered, each with a cup or bowl in hand. The bread here is coarse, made from barley or wheat, baked in simple camp ovens built from clay and stone. It is nothing like the fine white loaves of Rome, but to a soldier, it is fuel for the day ahead. Beside the bread, a pot of pulsa porridge made from boiled grains bubbles gently, tended by a cook who stirs it with slow, steady movements. A wedge of goat's cheese rests on a wooden board, its sharp scent mingling with the richer smell of the bread. Marcus takes a wooden cup filled with watered wine light enough to refresh, strong enough to steady the body. As he eats, he listens to the low murmur of conversation around him. The talk is soft, the laughter subdued, for it is too early yet for the boisterous energy of midday. Some speak of home, of letters received from distant towns and villages. Others discuss the day's duties, or the weather, or the rumors of where the cohort might march next. When the meal is finished, Marcus lingers a moment longer, savoring the last warmth of the bread in his hands. The sun is higher now, its light spilling into the camp in long golden strokes. Shadows shorten. From somewhere near the center of the camp, the sharp, clear call of the bacina, a curved brass horn, cuts through the air. It is the summons to assemble, the signal that the day's work is about to begin. Marcus sets down his cup and makes his way back to his tent. He buckles on his armor piece by piece, the larica segmentate, with its bands of metal fitted snugly over his chest, the greaves that guard his shins, and finally, his helmet, its crest plain and unadorned, marking him as a common legionary. Each movement is deliberate, the product of countless repetitions. To a soldier, preparation is as much a ritual as it is a necessity. When he is ready, Marcus steps into the growing light. Around him, the men of the century form up in neat lines, each one a mirror of the others, each one a small part of something greater. The centurion stands before them, his vine staff in hand, a symbol of both authority and discipline. The camp is no longer waking. It is alive, moving with the steady pulse of the legion, the quiet hum of an army ready for the day ahead. For Marcus, the morning is more than a routine, it is a reminder of why he is here. The order, the discipline, the purpose, all of it shapes the man as surely as the man shapes the armor he wears. And as the sun rises over the Roman camp, casting its light across the land, he feels the weight of both his duty and the day ahead. He knows there will be challenges, as there always are. But for now, in these calm, golden hours, there is only the steady rhythm of the morning, the shared breath of the legion, and the quiet pride of a soldier beginning his day. The camp and daily life. The Roman camp, to an untrained eye, might appear as little more than rows of tents and wooden fortifications. But to a soldier like Marcus Lucius Varro, it is a world within itself, a living, breathing organism where every part serves a purpose, and where even the smallest detail is bound to discipline. When Marcus steps back into the open air after breakfast, the camp is in full motion. The early haze of morning has lifted, and sunlight lies like warm linen across the packed earth streets. From where he stands, he can see the ordered grid of the castra, the Latin word for their encampment stretching outward in precise lines. The Romans are famed for many things, but here, in the design of their temporary cities, their genius is made visible in every step. The Via Principals, the main road, cuts directly through the heart of the camp. It runs straight as a spear shaft from one side to the other, connecting the two main gates, and lined on each side with the larger tents of the senior officers. Beyond these, smaller lanes branch off at right angles, dividing the camp into neat blocks. Every soldier knows exactly where his tent stands in this grid, and every tent is identical in size, no matter the rank of the men within. The tents themselves are made from heavy, oiled leather tough enough to withstand rain, wind, and long months of travel. Each is supported by wooden poles and anchored by cords that hum faintly in the breeze. Inside, 8 men sleep together, their gear stowed in strict arrangement. It is not comfort that matters here, but order. The camp is surrounded by a ditch and an earthen rampart, topped with a wall of sharpened stakes. At each corner, watchtowers rise above the defenses, manned at all hours. From these towers, one can see far into the surrounding land, fields, forests, hills, and the winding shapes of rivers that catch the sun in quick flashes. This morning, Marcus walks along one of the side lanes, taking in the hum of activity around him. A pair of soldiers kneel beside the ditch, repairing a section of the wall where the rain has worn it down. The sound of shovels biting into earth is steady and sure. Elsewhere, a small group gathers around an anvil, where the blacksmith hammers out a fresh set of rivets for armor. The sharp, ringing rhythm of metal on metal carries through the air, bright as the morning light itself. Near the center of the camp lies the Principia, the headquarters tent. Its entrance is marked by two standards, one bearing the symbol of their legion, the other a tall, gleaming pole crowned with a gilded eagle, the aquila. To a Roman soldier, the eagle is more than a mere emblem, it is the soul of the legion, the standard they will defend at all costs. Within the Principia, the officers confer over maps, marking lines of march and points of supply. Though Marcus is not permitted inside unless summoned, he knows the place well enough to picture it, the low table spread with scrolls, the wax tablets covered in neat lines of script, the smell of parchment and oil lamps. Beyond the headquarters lies the forum of the camp, a wide, open space where announcements are made and formations assembled. Here, the men gather when orders are to be given, when punishments are carried out, and when speeches are delivered before battle. Now, in the calm of peacetime, it is a place of movement and small errands. Messengers hurry across it with messages bound for the officers, and a few soldiers linger in conversation at its edges. As Marcus continues his walk, he passes the supply area. Here, bundles of firewood are stacked in neat piles, barrels of grain stand in rows, and crates of dried meat are kept under cloth coverings to shield them from the sun. Everything is counted, tallied, and guarded. The legion can move swiftly when needed, but it does not move unprepared. Near the far edge of camp, a group of soldiers are gathered around a small field kitchen. The cook is stirring a pot of lentils, seasoning it with a pinch of salt and herbs gathered from the nearby countryside. A few men are baking flatbreads on heated stones, their hands working the dough with practiced ease. The smell of food drifts through the air, mingling with the sharper scent of tanned leather from the workshop next door. Marcus pauses here, exchanging a quiet word with one of the bakers, a friend from Hispania, whose laughter is as quick as his sword hand. They speak for a few minutes about the next supply convoy due from a nearby town, and about the wine that may or may not be included in its load. The conversation is easy, filled with the kind of gentle humor that soldiers use to make the days pass more quickly. From here, Marcus makes his way toward the training ground. This open space lies just inside the camp's main gate, its surface a hard-packed expanse of earth. Already, a group of younger recruits is there, practicing with wooden swords. They move through a series of slow, deliberate strikes, their bodies turning with each blow. Nearby, another group works with shields, locking them together into the tight wall that Roman legions are famed for. The centurion overseeing the drill calls out instructions, his voice steady and measured. Though the movements are slow now, Marcus knows they will grow faster, harder, and more exhausting as the sun rises higher. He did not join the training this morning. His turn will come later, but he lingers to watch for a while. There is something steadying in the sight of men learning their craft, in the rhythm of discipline shaping raw energy into skill. Every soldier in the Roman army has been through this, and it is a bond that holds them together, even in silence. By midday, the camp settles into a quieter rhythm. Some men repair their equipment, sitting cross-legged in the shade of their tents as they oil leather straps or sharpen blades. Others write letters, the scratch of stylus on wax carrying faintly on the breeze. A few sleep, their helmets resting beside them, their bodies stretched out in the narrow shade. Marcus finds himself a seat on a low crate near the supply area and takes out his own small task for the day, mending the strap of his scabbard. The leather is frayed at the edges from months of wear, and his fingers work steadily, threading fresh cord through the holes. It is a small thing, but in a soldier's life, such details are the difference between readiness and regret. The sun arcs slowly overhead, and the camp shifts with its light. Shadows lengthen again, and the air cools slightly. Somewhere, the soft note of a flute drifts through the stillness of a soldier playing for his own comfort, or perhaps for a friend resting nearby. The sound blends with the murmur of voices, the occasional clink of armor, and the faint creak of wooden carts as supplies are moved from one place to another. By the time the evening horn sounds, calling the men to gather once more, the camp has the feeling of a small town at peace. Fires are lit in neat circles, casting warm halos across the ground. The smell of roasting meat joins the scent of bread and herbs, and the laughter grows a little louder now that the day's work is done. Marcus sits with his contubernium, sharing the meal, passing a skin of watered wine from hand to hand. The talk turns to stories of past campaigns, of faraway places, of home. The stars begin to prick the sky overhead, and the glow of the fires becomes brighter against the dark. For now, the world beyond the camp's walls can wait. Here, in this ordered space of tents and roads, of familiar faces and shared duties, Marcus finds the quiet balance that holds a soldier's life together. It is a life of discipline, yes, but also one of simple, enduring bonds. And as the night deepens, the camp becomes a small island of light in the vast sea of the empire's frontier. Training and discipline. For the Roman soldier, training is not a phase that ends once a man earns his place in the legion, it is a constant rhythm that shapes every day, every movement, and every thought. To live as a soldier is to live in a state of readiness, as much in mind as in body. The empire's strength depends upon this discipline, and so the camp breathes it in the way a man breathes air, without pause, without question. The morning horn calls earlier than usual today. Its clear, rising note sweeps across the camp, pulling men from their beds and tents. The sky is still pale, with the first colors of sunrise barely touching the horizon, and the air carries a chill that nips at the skin. Marcus easily wakes years of habit, making the sound feel less like an alarm and more like an old friend. He dresses quickly, securing his belt, pulling on his boots, and stepping out into the dim light. Around him, other soldiers move with the same quiet efficiency, fastening armor straps, adjusting helmets, and checking the fit of shields on their forearms. The camp has its murmurs in these early hours, the muted clink of bronze fittings, the soft crunch of boots on hard earth, the short, low words traded between companions. Today's training will take place on the open ground just beyond the palisade. The Romans often drill outside the camp walls when the surroundings are secure, giving the men more space for makeovers. The training field stretches wide, its surface worn smooth by years of marching feet. The scent of trampled grass lingers faintly beneath the dry dust of its packed soil. The centurion stands at the field's edge, his vine staff resting lightly in one hand. Beside him, the centurion's assistant unrolls a small wax tablet and begins reading the day's drill orders. The words are clipped and practical: formations, weapon exercises, and endurance work. No soldier groans or protests. This is the way of things. The first exercise begins with marching. Not the aimless wandering of travelers, but the precise, measured step of the Roman legions, each footfall timed, each movement in perfect unison. They march in formation across the field, then turn sharply at the centurion's signal, the ranks shifting like a single living body. The sound of it is steady and deep, the boots striking the earth with a rhythm that echoes in the chest. From marching, they move to shield drills. Marcus grips his scutum, the large curved rectangle of wood and leather that shields his body from shoulder to knee. It is heavy, and after hours of holding it, the arm feels as though it belongs to someone else. But in the Legion, the shield is more than protection, it is a wall, a door, a weapon, and a lifeline. At the centurion's call, the soldiers form the testudo, or tortoise formation. The front rank raises shields forward, while the ranks behind lift theirs overhead, locking them tightly together. From the outside, it resembles the shell of a great creature, solid, seamless, impenetrable. Inside, the air is still and dim, carrying the scent of leather and sweat, the sound of breath and the faint grind of shield edges against one another. They hold the formation, unmoving, until the centurion's command releases them. Next comes weapons practice. The gladius, a short, double-edged sword, is the heart of Roman infantry combat. The soldiers practice not with sharpened steel, but with wooden training swords called rudis, each deliberately heavier than the real thing. The idea is simple: train with the harder weight, and the true weapon will feel swift and light in battle. Marcus steps to a post driven into the earth, its surface scarred by countless blows from the soldiers before him. He strikes in controlled thrusts, never slashing wildly. The Roman doctrine is clear: wounds that pierce are deadlier and quicker than those that cut. Each strike is followed by a shield movement. Forward, to block; sideways, to bash; upward, to guard the head. The motions are not hurried, but deliberate, each one feeding smoothly into the next. As the morning wears on, the exercises grow more taxing. The soldiers run laps around the field in full gear, the weight of armor and weapons turning each stride into an act of will. They leap small obstacles, form and reform ranks, and repeat maneuvers until muscle memory takes over. The discipline here is not about brute force, it is about endurance, precision, and unity. The centurion does not shout needlessly. His commands are firm, his corrections swift, but there is no wasted anger. He knows his men must trust his voice, whether it calls them in the quiet of a drill or in the chaos of a real campaign. When he speaks, they respond; when he signals, they move. By midday, sweat darkens the fabric of Marcus's tunic beneath his armor. The dust of the field clings to every surface, skin, leather, and steel alike. The sun has risen high, and its warmth presses down heavily, yet the drills continue. The final exercise is a mock engagement, two halves of the cohort facing one another, each side maneuvering to break the other's formation without striking in earnest. The air fills with the clatter of shields and the thud of boots, with shouted commands and the low grunts of exertion. When at last the horn sounds at the end of the session, the men lower their shields and straighten their lines. There is no cheer, no celebration, only the quiet satisfaction of work done and skill maintained. Marcus wipes a hand across his brow, feeling the grit of dust on his skin. The weight of the morning's labor sits in his muscles, but it is a familiar weight, one that speaks of readiness and resilience. Back in the camp, the soldiers tend first to their equipment before themselves. Blades are cleaned and oiled, shields checked for cracks, straps tightened or replaced. Only when the gear is in order do they turn to water and food. A midday meal is served: simple bread, cheese, and fruit, with a little wine to wash it down. The shade beneath the tents is cool, and the men sit together in easy silence, broken only by the occasional remark or laugh. As Marcus rests, he reflects on the truth of the legion's strength. It is not the armor, nor the weapons, nor even the discipline alone, it is the bond formed by countless mornings like this one. The drills do more than train the body, they shape the mind to act in harmony with the men on either side. In the field, a soldier is never alone. He is part of something greater, something that moves and breathes with one purpose. When the afternoon horn calls for the next duties, Marcus rises without hesitation. The sweat has dried, the dust remains, and the day moves forward in its steady, unbroken rhythm. There will be more training tomorrow, as there was yesterday, as there will be for as long as he wears the eagle on his shield. This is the life of a Roman soldier, shaped by discipline, sustained by routine, and bound by the unspoken oath to stand firm always in the service of the legion. Marching across the empire. The camp wakes before the sun when the order is given to march. It is not the sudden, chaotic waking of surprise, but the steady, purposeful rising of men who know every step of the day ahead. The air is cool, almost cold, the kind that clings to the skin and makes the breath drift in faint clouds. The sky is a deep shade of blue still tinged with night, and the faintest line of pale gold waits low on the horizon. Marcus moves quietly in the dim light, packing his belongings in practiced order. The Roman soldier travels light, but every item is chosen for its necessity: his folded cloak, his kit for cooking and eating, a small bag of personal keepsakes, his tools, and his weapons. The sarcina, the soldier's marching pack, sits ready by the tent flap, its straps worn smooth by countless journeys. Alongside it rests the pilum, the long throwing spear, and the scutum, the broad shield that will be his shelter both in battle and under the open sky. The morning horn sounds, a long note that floats into the cool air. Around the camp, tents are lowered in perfect order, their leather folds neatly rolled and tied. The sound of wooden tent poles knocking together rises in a scattered rhythm, joined by the thud of boots and the murmur of voices. No one shouts, the legion does not need shouting to move. By the time the first light brushes the camp's palisade, the men are assembled on the via principals, standing in orderly ranks. The centurions walk the lines, inspecting straps, packs, and weapons, their eyes quick and knowing. When all is ready, the command is given, and the legion steps forward, one long, living column moving into the awakening world. The road stretches ahead, a strip of stone and packed earth laid down by the same hands that now walk it. Roman roads are the veins of the empire, running straight and strong through forests, over hills, and across plains. They are built for movement, for the steady march of soldiers, traders, and travelers, carrying the life of Rome to even its farthest edges. The sound of the march is deep and steady. Boots strike the road in perfect unison, the weight of each step pressing into the earth. Shields creak softly on their leather straps, and the faint metallic jingle of armor accompanies the rhythm. The air is still cool, carrying the sense of damp soil, crushed grass, and distant wood smoke from some unseen farmhouse or village. Marcus walks near the middle of the column, the world ahead and behind hidden by the line of men and the curve of the road. From time to time, he glances to the side, where the land unfolds in slow, steady scenes. A flock of sheep moving across a hillside, their wool catching the morning light. A narrow stream glinting between reeds. Small clusters of wildflowers, pale yellow, soft white, dotting the roadside. The pace is measured but unyielding. The Roman soldier is trained to march long distances without faltering, covering miles each day with the weight of his armor and pack. There is little conversation during the march, the effort focuses the body and clears the mind. When words are spoken, they are short, almost casual, shared between men walking side by side without breaking stride. By mid-morning, the sun has risen higher, and the air begins to warm. The road dips gently through a shallow valley, where the scent of wet earth grows stronger. Here, the marching column passes beneath the shade of tall poplar trees, their leaves whispering faintly in the breeze. The sound is soft, almost like the hush of distant waves, and it mingles with the steady cadence of boots on stone. The centurion calls a short halt in the shade. The men shift their packs from their shoulders, roll them forward, and rest them on the ground. Some drink from leather water skins, the cool liquid washing away the dust in their throats. Others stretch their legs, rolling their shoulders to ease the weight of the morning's march. Marcus sits on a low rock at the roadside, gazing out at the gentle rise of land ahead. He chews a strip of dried meat, its salt sharp on his tongue, and lets his thoughts drift to home, olive groves, the smell of warm bread, the laughter of his younger brother in the courtyard. The break is brief. The horn sounds again, and the column rises as one, shoulders bending once more beneath their packs. The road leads onward, curving now around the base of a hill. Here, the land opens into a wide plain, where fields of wheat sway in the light breeze. A farmer, leaning on his staff, watches the column pass, his gaze lingering on the gleam of shields and helmets. He raises a hand in greeting, and Marcus nods in return. As the day lengthens, the road becomes dustier. The air grows warmer, and the sun's heat presses down steadily. Sweat trickles beneath the edges of armor, and the straps of the sarcina dig into the shoulders. Still, the pace never falters. The discipline of the legion is not only in its formations but in the unwavering constancy of its movement. At midday, they halt again, this time near a stream. The water runs clear over a bed of smooth stones, its sound light and quick in the still air. The men kneel to fill their skins, to splash their faces, to rest a moment in the shade of nearby willows. Some remove their boots to stretch their feet, the cool water swirling around their ankles. Marcus lingers near the stream's edge, watching sunlight break into 1,000 bright fragments across the ripples. The march resumes in the afternoon. The shadows lengthen, and the light grows softer, turning the fields and hills to shades of gold. Villages appear from time to time, clusters of whitewashed walls and red-tiled roofs, the smoke of cooking fires curling lazily into the sky. Children run to the roadside to watch the soldiers pass, some calling out words of greeting, others simply staring in wide-eyed silence. As the day draws toward evening, the column approaches a gentle rise. From its crest, the land beyond spreads out in a vast, open view. Rolling fields, scattered woods, and in the far distance, the faint line of another road leading onward. It is there, at the base of the hill, that the centurion gives the order to make camp. The transformation is immediate and precise. Picks and shovels are brought out, a ditch is dug, earth is piled into a rampart, stakes are driven into the ground. Within an hour, the familiar order of the camp has taken shape once more, as if it had always been there. Tents are raised, fires are lit, and the smell of food begins to drift on the cooling air. Marcus sits near the fire with his contubernium, his legs stretched toward the warmth. The meal is simple bread, cheese, and a stew of lentils and herbs, but after the long day's march, it tastes rich and satisfying. The sky above deepens into twilight, and the first stars appear, sharp and bright against the darkening blue. The march will begin again tomorrow, as it did today, as it has for countless days before. But for now, there is only the quiet comfort of the fire, the steady murmur of voices, and the knowledge that the road ahead is simply part of the life they have chosen. In the slow rhythm of the march, Marcus finds something like peace and unspoken truth that the road itself, not the destination, is where a soldier's life is truly lived. Battles and campaigns. The campaign season begins not with the clash of swords, but with the quiet preparations that stretch across weeks. In the camp, small signs appear long before any battle is fought: fresh bundles of arrows stacked in the armory, shields newly repaired, the edges of weapons carefully sharpened in the evening light. The quartermasters check their tallies, ensuring that grain, wine, oil, and salt will sustain the legion on the road ahead. Leather tents are inspected for wear, boots are resoled, and the soldiers' marching packs are restocked. Marcus can feel the change in the air, though no one says it aloud. The mood is not tense, but focused like the hush before a storm that may or may not break. He moves through his tasks with the same calm precision as always, oiling the metal of his helmet until it gleams faintly, rolling and tying his cloak, folding his spare tunic. The Optio, the second-in-command to the centurion, passes by, offering a few quiet words about the route they will take, the river crossings ahead, and the fortifications to be built along the way. When the day comes to leave, the camp dismantles in the same smooth rhythm as on any march. But now, the column moves with a slightly different energy, not faster, not louder, but more aware. Every man knows that their path will carry them toward the enemy's lands. Still, the march remains steady, the discipline unbroken. It is the Roman way, to arrive not as a wild surge, but as a living wall of iron and order. Days pass on the road. The landscape changes from fertile farmland to the open sweep of plains, where the wind runs unbroken for miles. Small villages appear less often, and the nights are darker beneath the wide, star-filled sky. When the camp is built each evening, the soldiers take care to strengthen the walls and deepen the ditches, the fires kept lower to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Eventually, the first signs of the enemy's presence appear not in sudden skirmishes, but in the subtle traces left on the land. A field left untended. A village abandoned, its doors hanging open in the wind. A broken cart at the roadside, its wooden wheel lying in the grass. One evening, the scouts return with word: the opposing force is not far, perhaps a day's march away. The centurions gather in the commander's tent, their voices low but firm as they discuss the ground where the battle will be met. Maps are unrolled, ink dark lines tracing rivers, ridges, and roads. The soldiers outside continue their routines, eating, sharpening weapons, tending the fires, but each man knows that tomorrow may bring something different. That night, Marcus lies awake longer than usual. The sounds of the camp are familiar: the crackle of the fire, the murmur of quiet conversation, the occasional shift of armor as someone rolls in their sleep. Yet there is an added stillness in the air, as if even the wind has paused to listen. Morning comes pale and cool. The legion rises early, armor strapped on with steady hands. The formation forms as always, ranks aligned, shields in place. The march is short today. The ground chosen for the coming engagement lies just beyond the next ridge. When they crest it, the plain below spreads wide and open, framed by low hills on either side. It is here that the Roman army begins its careful work. The engineers move first, marking lines in the earth where ditches will be dug and palisades raised. The soldiers set their shields down, take up shovels and picks, and begin to shape the ground into a temporary fortress. Even on the eve of battle, the discipline of construction remains: order brought to the land itself before any weapon is lifted. By midday, the camp stands ready, its walls a ring of quiet strength. The opposing army can be seen in the distance, their banners stirring in the breeze. They are too far for faces to be seen, and so they remain almost abstract shapes and colors moving on the far edge of the plain. Marcus spends the afternoon checking his gear again. The weight of the shield is familiar now, almost comforting. The sword at his side feels no heavier than it did yesterday. He shares a meal with his contubernium. The conversation lights small memories of home, idle remarks about the weather. The laughter, though soft, is genuine. As evening falls, the camp settles into a kind of quiet that is different from any other. The fires burn low, the sentries keep watch, and the stars appear in their slow, patient order above. Some soldiers pray softly. Others simply sit in silence, gazing at the dark horizon. When dawn breaks, it does so with a cool, clean light. The horn sounds, not in alarm, but in summoning. The legion forms on the plain, shields raised, spears ready, not in haste, but with the measured calm of men who have drilled this moment 1,000 times. From a distance, the enemy begins to move. The sound is faint at first, a murmur of steps, the rustle of banners. Then, as the space between the armies narrows, the noise grows: a deep, resonant hum of two forces meeting on purpose. The first commands are given. Formations shift, ranks adjust, shields tilt to catch the morning light. The front lines advance, the space between them shrinking until the moment comes when words are no longer carried by the wind. What follows is not a blur, but a steady unfolding. The soldiers move as they have trained, each motion part of a greater whole. The shield wall holds, advances, presses forward. When the clash finally comes, it is not the wild chaos outsiders might imagine, but the weight and rhythm of trained men working in unison. Marcus feels the push of the shield in his grip, the ground firm beneath his boots. He moves when the centurion calls, steps back when ordered, advances when signaled. The sounds around him are a mixture of breath, the ring of metal, and the deep, grounding voice of command. Hours pass, or perhaps only moments. Time in such moments becomes a thing without clear measure. And then, as the sun begins to angle toward late afternoon, the command is given to withdraw. The enemy falls back, the plain grows still. The Roman soldiers return to their camp in the same order they left it. There is no cheer, no wild celebration, only the quiet satisfaction of a task carried through. Armor is set aside, wounds tended, food prepared. The evening sky glows in shades of amber and rose, and the air is filled with the smell of cooking fires. Marcus sits once more with his companions, the weight of the day settling slowly into his bones. The battle is done, for now. Beyond the walls of the camp, the land stretches on, holding both the memory of the day and the promise of journeys yet to come. In the soft hush of twilight, the soldier's life continues not in the clash, but in the quiet after. Nights beneath the Roman sky. The days of marching pass like the measured beats of a great, steady heart. Each morning begins with the same ritual, the soft sound of boots on earth, the muted clink of armor being fastened, the gentle calls between soldiers as the column forms. The road stretches ahead in its patient way, winding between hills, crossing rivers, dipping into valleys where the air smells of wet grass and wild thyme. Marcus has grown used to the rhythm. The world narrows to the cadence of footsteps and the slow rise and fall of the land beneath them. The sun traces its arc overhead, the shadows shifting on the road, the air warming and cooling in cycles as the day unfolds. But it is in the evenings when the march is over, and the camp has been raised that the quiet magic of the soldier's life truly takes hold. When the order comes to halt for the day, the legion sets to work as if guided by invisible threads of habit. The engineers mark the camp's boundaries, and the soldiers lay down their packs. The earth is turned for the ditches, stakes driven for the palisade, and gates fixed into place. There is no hurry, no shouting, only the steady progress of hundreds of hands shaping order from the open land. By the time the last tent is pitched, the sun has begun to sink toward the horizon. Its light spreads in long amber strokes across the plain, casting the shadows of the soldiers in dark, stretched silhouettes. The air cools, carrying with it the faint scent of the cooking fires that begin to bloom within the camp. From the edge of the fortifications, the world beyond glows softly, the distant hills fading into a haze of gold and violet. The night routines begin quietly. Helmets and breastplates are set aside, swords are checked and cleaned. Water is fetched from nearby streams, carried in leather buckets that sway gently with each step. Some soldiers tend to do small repairs, mending a strap, sewing a loose seam, replacing a missing buckle. Others gather in little groups, their voices low and unhurried, as if the evening itself has taught them patience. When the meal is ready, the smell drifts through the camp: warm bread baked on flat stones, lentils simmered in clay pots, strips of cured meat turning slowly over the flames. Marcus eats with his contubernium, sharing the food evenly, each man taking no more than his portion. There is a comfort in this small fairness, a sense that in such matters, the army is not only a machine of war but a community bound by quiet trust. After the meal, the light fades quickly. The fires glow brighter now, their edges dancing with the movements of the soldiers nearby. The sky deepens from violet to blue, then from blue to a vast and endless black. Above, the stars emerge, first a handful, then 100, then countless points of silver scattered across the heavens. The Milky Way stretches like a pale river of light, running from horizon to horizon. Marcus leans back, resting on one elbow, and lets his gaze travel upward. The stars here are not the same as those he saw in the streets of Rome. They are sharper, cleaner, as if the distance from the city has stripped away the haze that hides their brilliance. Some of the constellations are old companions: Orion, his bow drawn, the twins, side by side, the hunter's hound chasing eternally at his feet. Others are strange to him, shapes the local guides have named in their own tongues. Around the camp, small conversations drift into the air. A few men speak of home, their voices softened by distance and time. Others trade stories of past marches, of far-off provinces with strange customs and flavors. There is laughter, quiet and warm, as someone recalls a mishap with a stubborn mule, or the time a cook mistook salt for sugar in the bread dough. The sentries walk their rounds at the camp's edge. Their footsteps are soft on the packed earth, their silhouettes moving between the firelight and the darkness beyond. From time to time, one pauses to look out into the night. The land lies still, broken only by the faint shapes of hills and the silver gleam of a distant river. Marcus stretches out on his cloak, the fire's warmth brushing against one side of his face while the cool night air settles on the other. Somewhere nearby, a soldier hums a low, wordless tune. The notes rise and fall like the gentle sway of a ship at anchor, lulling those who listen into a deeper calm. The sound mingles with the occasional crackle of the firewood, and the faint, rhythmic murmur of the night insects in the grass. Above, the stars seem to lean closer, their light pooling faintly on the land. It is easy to imagine that the world has shrunk to this circle of warmth and companionship, the rest of the empire lying somewhere far beyond the walls. In these moments, the soldier's life feels not like a chain of orders and marches, but a drifting journey under an ancient sky, a life measured in footsteps, fires, and the turning of the constellations. The hours pass in their slow, unbroken way. Some men talk until their voices fade into drowsy silence, others fall asleep almost as soon as they lie down. The fires burn lower, the night deepens, and the camp becomes a small island of light in a vast sea of darkness. Marcus closes his eyes, the smell of wood smoke lingering on his cloak. The ground beneath him is firm, the air cool against his cheek, the steady murmur of the sentry's steps like the heartbeat of the camp. He drifts into sleep knowing that tomorrow will bring another day of marching, another night beneath the stars, and that each will be much like the last, woven into the endless, gentle fabric of the soldier's life on the road. Homecomings and stories by the fire. The road home always feels longer than the road away. Perhaps it is because each step carries the weight of years lived elsewhere, marches through foreign lands, nights under strange skies, the endless beat of the soldier's life far from familiar ground. Or perhaps it is because the heart quickens with each mile, and time itself seems to stretch, making the final days feel longer than all the months before. For Marcus, the approach to home is not marked by grand monuments or sudden revelation, but by small, familiar things. A bend in the road where the stones have worn smooth under countless feet. A grove of olive trees, their leaves whispering in the same soft breeze he remembers from boyhood. The faint smell of earth after rain, carrying with it the memory of spring planting seasons past. The sun is low when he first sees the village again, its rooftops catching the last gold of the day. The air hums with the sounds of evening, the bark of a distant dog, the creak of a cart returning from the fields, the faint ring of a hammer from the smithy. It is not a triumphant arrival. There is no parade, no blare of trumpets. Just the steady beat of his own footsteps, carrying him over the threshold between the life he left and the life that has waited for him. Faces appear in doorways, framed by the glow of lamplight. Some are older than he remembers, marked by the years he was away. Children, once small, now stand tall enough to meet his gaze. There are greetings, warm and unhurried, as though the village itself has always known he would return in his own time. Before long, Marcus finds himself drawn toward the great fire in the square, the same one that has been lit on every cool evening for as long as he can remember. The flames leap and dance, casting golden light across the gathered faces. There is laughter here, and the murmur of voices telling stories that wind through the air like threads of smoke. He is welcomed into the circle without question. A cloak is laid over his shoulders, warm from another's back. A cup of wine is pressed into his hands. The fire's heat seeps into him, chasing away the chill of the journey. The stories begin gently, as they always do. One man speaks of a good harvest, another tells of a clever goat that found its way into the mill and caused a week's worth of mischief. The rhythm of conversation is slow, giving space for each word, each pause, each smile shared in the firelight. When his turn comes, Marcus hesitates. It is not that he does not have stories, he has more than he could tell in 100 nights. But many of them live in a place of silence, bound to moments too sharp or heavy to be spoken aloud in such peaceful company. Instead, he chooses the gentler memories. He tells of the road across the high mountains, where the snow glowed under the moon as if the world had been turned to silver. He speaks of a coastal town where the sea was so blue that even the locals stopped to marvel at it. He recalls a night when the camp was visited by a wandering musician, whose songs lulled even the most restless sentries into stillness. The faces around the fire lean in, their eyes bright in the flickering light. Children sit cross-legged at his feet, their mouths slightly open as they imagine the far-off places he describes. Elders nod slowly, as though weaving his words into the tapestry of stories they have gathered over their own long years. The wine flows, but never in excess. The fire burns lower, its embers glowing deep red. A soft wind moves through the square, carrying with it the scent of baked bread from a nearby oven. Somewhere beyond the edge of the light, a night bird calls, its note clear and solitary. As the hour grows late, the stories slow. Some villagers drift away, their cloaks pulled tight against the night. Others remain, content to sit in the warmth, listening to the crackle of the fire and the quiet breath of the man beside them. Marcus stays, his gaze fixed on the flames. He feels the weight of his pack at his side, the sword at his belt, the calluses on his hands, all reminders of the road behind him. Yet he also feels something lighter, something that has waited here all these years without fading, the simple comfort of belonging. For the first time in a long while, there is no march ahead to prepare for, no order waiting to be given. There is only the fire, the stories, and the slow turning of the night sky above the village. The constellations will silently, the same ones he has seen from countless camps across the empire. But here, they feel closer, less like distant watchers and more like old friends keeping their vigil. As the last log collapses into glowing embers, Marcus closes his eyes. The murmur of voices fades, replaced by the steady, familiar sound of home. And in that warmth, under that sky, he understands that a soldier's journey is not only measured in miles marched or battles fought, but in the moments of stillness when the road at last leads back to the place where it began. A soldier's legacy in the eternal city. In the heart of Rome, where the streets wind like veins through the living body of the city, the stones still remember the weight of a soldier's tread. It is in the worn edges of the steps leading up to the Capitoline Hill, in the faint grooves along the great flagstones of the Forum, in the quiet places where shadows gather at dusk. Marcus walks here now, older than when he first marched away, the seasons of his service etched into the lines of his face and the deliberate pace of his steps. He no longer wears the armor that once caught the sun like a mirror of gold. Instead, he wears the simple tunic of a citizen, his sword kept more as a memory than a weapon. The streets are busy, yet he moves through them as though each moment is its own island of calm. The eternal city is as it has always been, full of voices, smells, and colors that seem too many to hold at once. Merchants call out the freshness of their figs and olives, the river Tiber flows with its steady, ancient rhythm, and somewhere a child's laughter rings out, bright as a silver bell. And yet, for Marcus, Rome holds another sound as well, the faint echo of the past, a low murmur of the men he once marched beside. In the quiet hours of the morning, he sometimes walks to the edge of the city walls, where the fields stretch toward the horizon. He looks out over them, remembering the roads that led him across mountains and deserts, through cities and along the endless ribbon of the sea. Those roads belong to younger men now, their boots fresh on the path, their shields unscarred. He watches them depart on campaigns as he once did, and though the faces are different, the spirit is the same, the steady courage of those who go because they must. When the day grows long, Marcus often finds himself in a shaded courtyard not far from the Forum, where a fountain spills water into a wide, shallow basin. Here, the air is cooler, and the sound of water is a gentle counterpoint to the hum of the city beyond the walls. Sometimes he sits on the stone bench, his hands resting in his lap, and speaks softly to those who gather around. The children of the neighborhood know him as the man who tells stories not just of battles or long marches, but of the little things he saw along the way. He tells them of the scent of wild rosemary growing beside a road in Hispania, of the way the desert air in Egypt shimmers at noon, of the taste of fresh bread baked in a tiny village by the sea in Greece. He tells them of the nights when the stars seemed close enough to touch, and the mornings when the world felt entirely new. They listen with the kind of quiet that comes from being drawn into a world far beyond the courtyard. Sometimes they close their eyes as they listen, as though they too are walking the long roads with him. And in their faces, Marcus sees a reflection of his younger self, setting out with eyes wide open to the unknown. As evening falls, the marble buildings of Rome turn soft in the fading light, the gold of their facades giving way to deep, peaceful shadows. Marcus walks home slowly, the city's familiar sounds folding around him like a cloak. Somewhere, a lyre is being played, its notes drifting into the warm air. The smell of supper drifts from open doorways, mingling with the faint scent of blooming jasmine. In his small room, he keeps only a few tokens of the life he once lived. A worn pair of boots, a strip of faded legionary standard, a carved wooden charm given to him by a friend long gone. These are not trophies, but reminders that the road he walked was real, that the life he lived was full, and that each step, no matter how far, led him back here. Sometimes, on the quietest nights, he dreams of the march again. He hears the rhythmic beat of feet on the road, the soft jingle of armor, the murmur of voices speaking low in the dark. But the dream always ends the same way, with the sound of a crackling fire, and the sight of the stars over his own home. Rome will go on. New roads will be built, new campaigns fought, new names spoken in the tales of the city. But in the worn stones, in the memory of the road, in the voices of children hearing stories for the first time, Marcus's journey will live on, not as a tale of war, but as a quiet thread in the endless tapestry of the eternal city. And so, under the watch of the same constellations that once guided his steps across the empire, he sits in the heart of Rome content, at peace, and at last, home.